How are you this evening? Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us for Stories of Atlantic City's Mind Your Mind workshop with Nate Evans Jr. We are so thrilled to have you spend time with us tonight. It's going to be a great time. I already know it. I know we're going to walk away with some great tidbits from our facilitator. So we're going to hop right into it. But before we do, I'd like to before we dive into this great content, I'd like to offer a few housekeeping items. So number one, this event is being recorded, as you can see. So please inform us if you do not consent to this or if you have an issue with this, and we'll do the best we can to accommodate you. Also, at the end of the program, we will invite all of our participants to engage a bit more and share your thoughts and/or ask questions to our facilitator. So please be sure to stay muted until that time. In the meantime, however, please feel free to drop any questions or timely comments you may have in the chat. And either I or my team member, Toby Rosenthal, will be manning the conversation. Just realized I did not introduce myself. So my name is Christina Noble, and I'm the project manager for Stories of AC. And as I mentioned, Toby Rosenthal also works for Stories of AC. She is our project coordinator. So now that that is all out the way, I'd like to offer you a prompt, or a poll rather, before we jump into everything. Of course, we know tonight we'll be talking about mental health, as Nate will be sharing his story. So first, I'd like to offer you this poll and just gauge where you are, where your knowledge is based on mental health in America. So you should be seeing a poll shortly. So take a moment to answer that if you can. I know some of you are in your cars, though. If you can't, understood. But if you're able to do so, please go ahead and answer that question. All right, I see some answers rolling in. Great, great. All right. Great. All right, so let's show these results. Number one, what percentage of US adults experience mental illness? The answer is 1 in 5. So according to the National Alliance on Mental Health, 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness. I'd like to share a few more statistics regarding mental health in this country. So according to Mental Health America, the number of people looking for help with anxiety, depression has skyrocketed. From January to September 2020, people took the anxiety test. 93% of people who took the anxiety test increased compared to 2019. And 62%, there was a 62% increase in people who took a depression test. Another fact, young people are struggling the most with their mental health. The proportion of youth ages 11 to 17 who accessed screening was 9% higher than the average in 2019. Not only are the number of youth searching for help with their mental health increasing, but throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, youth ages 11 to 17 have been more likely than any other age group to score for moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety and depression. And lastly, while rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation are increasing for people of all races and ethnicities, there are notable differences in those changes over time. Black or African American screeners have had the highest average percent change over time for anxiety and depression, while Native American or Native Indian screeners have had the highest average percentage change over time for suicidal ideation. I just wanted to offer you that. And then, of course, we had our second question. What percentage of Americans intend to regularly practice self-care after the COVID-19 pandemic? And the answer is actually 80%. So that was a great thing to know. So I'm going to stop sharing these results. X that out. So now that you have some of those stats in your mind, I'd like to tee up our presenter for the evening. So Nate Evans Jr. is a millennial leader, change agent, 3 times published author, and #1 best-selling author of I Love You, Letters of Love from Black Men to Black Boys. He's a first-generation high school and college graduate. Nate is also a highly requested inspirational speaker, mental health advocate, youth mentor, consultant, an award-winning personal trainer. He lives by the quote, change what we normalize, which is trademarked, as his mission is to eradicate the stigmas around mental health in underserved communities, while also normalizing love amongst Black men and boys. This passion was inspired by his own battles with mental health issues as a child and teen. With this motivation, he has developed workshops for high schools, colleges, and corporate businesses based around mental health awareness and resilience. With his charismatic speaking and inspiring testimony, he educates teens and young adults on how to increase their mental awareness, resilience, and sense of self-worth. Nate is also a volunteer for the Covenant House in Atlantic City, a distinguished alumnus of Atlantic Cape Community College, top 4 under 40 award recipient, and has also received a certificate in Introduction to Adverse Childhood Experiences Early Trauma. And I know also not in his bio, he also is a director at the Boys and Girls Club in Atlantic City. So I wanted to add that in there too. So now I can properly present to you Nate Evans Jr.
Thank you so much, Christina, for that incredible introduction, first and foremost. It's an honor to be on here with all of you. I really wish I can see all of your beautiful faces, but this is the world we live in right now. So names will do, I guess. I'll have to look you all up on Facebook to see what you look like. But I'm glad that we're able to jump on here this evening and just kind of have this conversation because I don't want to talk at you. I really want to turn this into a conversation at some point. I think it's super important that we have these conversations, that we begin to normalize these conversations, and that we kind of bounce off of each other so we can heal ourselves and also begin to heal our communities. And again, just normalize, our mental wellness, our mental health, resilience, all of these different things. And tonight I'm going to share a little bit about that throughout my presentation. But first and foremost, I want to just share a little bit about myself, because then it'll make everything else kind of make sense. It'll come full circle when I begin to share why I do this, what's my reason behind this, why I'm so passionate about it, and what really got my interest in regards to the mental health field, the reasons why I'm going back to school, all of these different things when I was going down a different path. So I want to start with that first. And if you aren't driving, and if you are home somewhere, definitely grab a notebook if you feel like you want to take notes. You want to jot down some questions, some ideas, quotes, whatever it is. Again, this is more of a monologue kind of thing. I mean, not a monologue, it's going to be a dialogue, So make sure you write down stuff, all of those different things. I always try to carry a notebook with me when I'm going to go talk to people or be a part of presentations, because I don't know what wisdom somebody's going to impart on me. I don't know if I'm going to have a question that I want to ask later. So just always be prepared. And I want to start off by saying, be very intentional about your mental health. We have to be very intentional about our mental health. I heard once that if you don't program your mind, somebody else will program it for you. And we have to be very intentional about programming our own mind, programming our thoughts, being intentional about getting the treatment that we need if we are going through something, right? And I truly believe that nothing is more powerful than belief. I truly believe that, right? Because what you believe influences how you feel, and how you feel influences what you think, and what you think influences what you do, and what you do essentially, it influences who you become, right? And that's the power in belief. Whether you're going through something or not, that power in belief, knowing that you can get the help, that you can have better days moving forward, that's powerful. But if you don't believe that you can do that, then that's also going to come to pass as well, right? Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're always right. And I'll say this too, as a disclaimer, I usually share like these personal stories I'm about to share with you with like real close friends. So I'm letting y'all in tonight, and I consider you friends for this evening. And if we go beyond that, then that's cool too. But for this evening, you're a part of my friend group, my friend circle. So I just thank you again for holding space for me to share, what I want to share and really give you this presentation. I'll start with this. In 8th grade, I had received this reward or award, and it was Mr. Optimistic. And I had no idea what that meant when I first received this award. Like, Mr. Optimistic, like, what does that mean? I want to get the other stuff, like most popular, best athlete, all these things. And then I found out what optimistic meant. And I was like, okay, I guess that is me. I'm always looking at the bright side of, what the situation is, no matter what it was. No matter the circumstances that I grew up in, I always looked at the upside to everything. That was one of the attributes that I was blessed to just have. I don't know where I got that from. It wasn't necessarily my parents, but something in me was like, hey, look, you're optimistic, right? You always see the bright side to get out of a situation. No matter if you guys are sleeping on the floor or not, you'll figure something out where we're all going to be good, right? So that was the award that I got in 8th grade, which is crazy that they're giving it out to 8th graders. But I got that award, but I didn't know how important it was and how foretelling it was of my future, right? And how I would come back to look at that award and be like, man, they really saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself in regards to being optimistic, right? And I realized as I grew more mature that I simply wanted to just add value to the lives of other people and be a servant. I wanted to be a leader, but I didn't understand what that meant at the time either, right? When I was 15 years old, I had someone come up to me in the mall, me and my grandmother, and they were like, it was actually the press of Atlantic City. It was like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was like, that's a really random question to just ask me without saying hi, first of all. But it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And just off the bat, I was like a leader. And I didn't understand what that meant, right? And it's amazing because my mom, she gave me the newspaper clipping of when I said that, right? I actually have it right here, and I'll be sharing some of this stuff later, but I have the newspaper clipping of when I was 15 with like the baby face. And it says, to become a leader. So that's just a whole nother story within itself that's powerful. That's going to tie into my whole journey. But there's also a quote that says, be a lion so you can become the sheep that you are. Again, I love to serve, but I had to learn how to be more assertive with taking care of myself and taking care of my mental health. And what I realized that throughout my journey, nothing was wasted, right? Even when things were extremely challenging, now I can look back and connect the dots and I can see that nothing at all was wasted, like at all, right? And excuse me, sorry about that. I was insecure growing up as a kid, and I suffered from mental health challenges and mental health issues that I didn't have the language to really articulate until I got older and I started to study these things on my own. You be around the family, you're like, hey, that's your uncle, or he does this. This is your crazy uncle, or, he always has been that way. And it's like, what does that mean? But we normalized it growing up, right? We normalized it to where we never sought the treatment to get him help. And then years down the line, he has an alcohol addiction, or he overdoses on some type of drug, or he hits a woman and it's domestic violence all of a sudden, because we never addressed it before, because we just didn't have the language to it. We didn't really understand it, right? We didn't really understand what to do. And that was the environment that I grew up in. I went to 9 different schools, beginning in elementary, from kindergarten all the way up into high school. 9 different schools. So I was bouncing around from house to house. One time we'll be with my aunt one year. We'll be with my grandmother another year. We'll be with a cousin. We'll be back with my aunt. We'll be on our own. And it was like we were bouncing around from place to place. I'll be at my dad's, then I'll be back at my mom's. And I went to 9 different schools. I was at Uptown Complex. I was at New Jersey Avenue before they closed. I was in Pleasantville. I was at North Main, South Main, Pleasantville Middle School, Leeds Avenue, Pleasant Tech Academy, like literally bouncing around from school to school. And I didn't have a stable like community that I was really in. Like I didn't really have, it was hard to like have stability with friendships because I was always bouncing around every single year, from elementary all the way up until high school, where I ended up staying at Pleasantville High School for the 4 years. But prior to that, I was bouncing around school to school. And later on, I would bounce around to 5 different colleges. Now, I don't suggest anybody do that, right? None of you. But that was my story. That was my journey. I bounced around to 5 different colleges trying to find my way, but at the same time, running from the issues that I should have addressed, right? And that resulted in me bouncing around from place to place. Now, again, I truly believe everything happens for a reason, for a very specific reason, because now I can look back and be relatable. Now I can look back and share this testimony, this story of how I overcame, of how I built resilience. And I may not have been able to do that if things just worked out the way I wanted them to, right? And for me, growing up, I witnessed gang activity, violence, drug abuse. I was actually molested as a kid. Just all of these different things that were traumatic, but I kind of just, swept it under the bed, right? I swept it under the bed. Now the issue is this: you sweep things under the bed, but the dirt's still there. Like the dirt never left. You just moved it from one place to another. You never got rid of it, right? So I would just sweep everything under the bed. And that's what it was, right? That's what it was. And my insecurities rose, right? My lack of self-worth, it increased. Even though on the outside I looked, put together, right? I always played basketball, always kept myself together, always had some of the nicest stuff in regards to clothes and sneakers and things like that. But inside I was a wreck, right? It's like looking at my car. You see my car on the outside, it's this beautiful new car. It looks detailed. I keep the wheels clean, the rims is clean, everything's nice. But then one day you decide to get in my car and I got fast food stuff on the floor. I got gum all over the place. I got sweaty clothes in the back. And you're like, bro, what is going on with you? But I'm keeping the outside clean, but the inside is just torn apart and torn out the frame. And that was me at some point. And honestly, this may be some of you, right? And this is where we're going to do some self-reflection to really understand, all right, what are we going through? What are we hiding? What masks are we wearing right now? Are we addressing the internal issues? We look great on the outside, everything is good, but when we are alone, what are those things that are uprising in us that are affecting us in a negative way? And we need to address those. This is actually your responsibility, right? To take care of your mental health. But again, I didn't understand that at that age. So I get through, going through all these different schools. I get to high school, end up going to Pleasantville High School. I do my 4 years there and I have, a pretty good 4 years. I do well academically. I'm prom king, Mr. Greyhound, most likely to succeed, all of these different accolades. I make the all-star team. And one of the greatest things was that I earned a scholarship to play basketball in Memphis, Tennessee at a school called Lamar Nolan College, right? And this is important because I'm a first generation high school graduate. A lot of people say first gen college graduate. No. I'm a first generation high school graduate. And that's because my parents, they actually dropped out of school because they were having me. So because they were birthing me into this world, they actually dropped out of school to have me, to start working, to try to prepare a home, to try to get on their feet, to really get things going, right? So I would be, have some type of stability when I came out so they can actually take care of me as teenagers. So they didn't have that luxury of actually graduating because no one else was supporting them. So they dropped out. I became a first gen high school graduate, which was a huge deal to everybody. And at the time, I didn't really understand. Like, it's high school. Everybody should be graduating high school. But now looking back, talking to my mom and my dad, I'm like, oh, that's a big deal. That was something we didn't get through in our family because prior to that, my pop-up, who's my grandfather, he had a third grade education. So I was the first one to really make this milestone, right? To really go past this. And it's this huge deal. These are small wins that mean a lot to me and my family. So I'm a first gen high school graduate and I'm heading off to Memphis, Tennessee to Lamar Nolan College. And my pop-up, who I told you about, third grade education, he's excited. Like he's blown out the frame because he's like, yo, this is a huge deal, right? And he was so hyped that he was going to drive me from Memphis, Tennessee, right? I mean, from Pleasantville, New Jersey, all the way to Memphis, Tennessee in his Astro van. Like he wasn't going to let me get on the plane. He was like, look, we're going to pack up the Astro van, get everything in there, put all the stuff in there. We're going to drive him down there, stay for a few days. He had a whole trip planned out like he was going to college, right? And 2 weeks prior to me heading down to school, he would end up passing away, right? I remember coming home, seeing him on the couch. I'm like, Josh, what's going on? Josh is my younger brother. I'm like, what's going on? And he was like, I don't know. He's been like that all day long. And I'm like, all right, that's not normal. My pop-up's one of them guys that had the collar shirt on with the jeans, and he was always working around the house, fixing the car, mowing the lawn, breaking stuff so he can fix it again. Like he was that guy. Like he was real active, real old school, always had his little ball cap on, just that guy. Wake up, put the shirt on. And he would sit on the couch just holding his stomach. And it was my first time really seeing him in like this kind of like pain. I always seen him in my mind as like Superman. Like he was always doing amazing stuff. He was always upbeat, moving, doing things for the neighbors, taking care of an entire household, cooking food, whatever it was. And seeing him in his pain, I'm like, all right, this isn't normal. And I'm like, all right, we got to take him to the emergency room. Now, anybody that knows, old school men, they're not really trying to go to the hospital for anything, like at all. And I'm like, look, Papa, we're going to take you to the hospital whether you want to or not, right? I'm playing basketball. I'm in decent shape, right? My brother's playing football for Holy Spirit, so he's jacked up. I'm like, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to grab him, put him in the van, and we out. I just got my driver's license. We're going to grab him up, put him in the van, and we going. So that's what we did. I grabbed his license. I grabbed some other stuff. We picked him up, put him in the van, put his seatbelt on. And at this point, he's in a lot of pain. You can just see he's in his pain. So I'm like, all right, let's go. I jump in the Astro van. I'm literally like driving through red lights, flying to the emergency room. And I'm like, Josh, look, call dad, call my aunt, call all these people to meet us at the hospital. We get there, family starts pulling up. They take my pop up in the back room. A few hours pass by and the doctor comes out and he says, is this the Evans family? I was like, yeah, absolutely, sir, absolutely. He's like, all right, so we have some bad news, right? Mr. Evans has gangrene inside and eating at his intestines. And I didn't know what gangrene was at the time, right? I wasn't just whipping out my new phone and looking on Google or anything like that. I'm like, what is that? And he was telling us it's a bacteria and it's actually eating away at the intestines and there's nothing that can actually stop it. And at this point, I felt like my heart just dropped, literally just dropped. And it was like, wait, what? It was like, I felt like I was in a twilight zone, literally. Like everything just stopped, got quiet. I was like, wait, what? And he was like, there's nothing we can do to stop it. And I'm like begging and pleading with the doctor, like, you got to do something. You have to do something, figure something out, please. Right. And, they go back there, they're doing different things, running different tests. And ultimately the result was that he wasn't going to make it past the next day. So I literally got him there like a day before and he wasn't going to make it past the next day. The next time they allowed us to see him, we went in the back room, me, my brother, and my dad, and he was tubes everywhere, tubes in his mouth, all over the place, some stuff in his nose, and his eyes were really glassy. And we were in the back room, and he couldn't even talk to us, right? He couldn't even talk to us. And I remember just breaking down in that moment, but at the same time, not knowing how to express those emotions, like how to say, like, I'm really hurting right now. Like, this is terrible right now. It's literally just, it was like a tear come here and I'm just kind of like trying to suck it up at the same time, which wasn't healthy at all. Literally wasn't healthy at all. I'm trying to suck it up. And, he ends up passing away right there shortly after. And I remember us leaving the hospital and I'm just in a daze. And I started trying to find ways to cope with what was really bothering me, right? I already had the culmination of all these things from me growing up, from being molested, to being introduced to drugs, to gangs, to violence, to all of these different things happening. And me kind of normalizing that trauma. And then this person who is so close to my heart leaves me, leaves me at a time when he was going to take me down there for this big feat for our family, this grand, thing. I was a trailblazer of the family. This is going to be huge. This is a celebration. And he passes away 2 weeks prior. And again, I remember going home and just drinking, hanging out, trying to find a party, trying to find things to do, trying to drown my emotions in these different ways. I end up going to school late, about 2 weeks late. I get down to school, first time ever on the flight, first time really ever traveling that far outside of just playing AAU basketball. And I get down to Memphis, Tennessee, and I get right into the party life, literally. As soon as I get there, first night, my roommate happened to be a senior. I don't know how that happens with a freshman and a senior, but he happened to be my roommate. And the first night we're on Bill Street at the club, hanging out. And I'm just like, I don't want to think about anything that's going on at home or anything that happened. I'm trying to move forward, but it was so unhealthy. I did not have proper coping methods, right? I didn't feel as though I could call home like, hey, mom, I'm going through this, or hey, dad, look, this is what's really on my heart. Now I can do those things today, but at that time, it was foreign to all of us, right? We never had those kind of conversations. We stirred away from it. I grew up in the church. It was more so like, hey, let's pray this thing away. And everything else is the devil. And let's focus on this. So it's like, I'm not going to call home to get that conversation. So I partying, hanging out, messing around with girls, whatever it was, that's what I was doing. And it began to get to it was the end of the first semester. And I remember going to the coach like, hey, I can't do this. I got to leave. And literally right there in the middle of the season, like, I got to leave. I can't do this. I ended up forfeiting my scholarship and just literally coming back home from Memphis, Tennessee, right? And a full ride scholarship isn't something easy to come by. I ended up getting a full ride scholarship that my parents couldn't afford. They couldn't afford to send me somewhere else. And I ended up forfeiting that because I was having mental breakdowns. Literally, I was having breakdowns probably like every other night or something. I was just stressed, having a breakdown, like, all right, yo, let's go drink, let's go do something. Stuff that was so far out of my character because I didn't have the proper tools in place to really help myself, right? So I came home and I worked for a little bit, helped my mom out for a little bit. I ended up going to a tournament in North Jersey called the EKB tournament. I don't know if they still have this basketball tournament, but I ended up going to that. And I actually ended up meeting the coach, getting another scholarship. That's the crazy part about this whole story. I had 2 scholarships. I ended up getting another full ride scholarship, this time to go to New Mexico and play basketball. Full ride scholarship. I went out there for a year, played, did my thing, but I still had the same battles, the same demons, the same issues that I didn't address before. I still had those same things. So what was the result of that? It was me leaving another school because I felt like me going to the school would help me with the mental health challenges that I was going through. It will help me with the anxiety. It will help me with the depression. And that just wasn't the truth. I was just bouncing around from place to place. So I ended up leaving New Mexico and coming back home, right? And during this time I was home, started working again, but a very life-altering event happened, for me at least. And this is when I knew things were severe and I really needed to start getting some help, right? I got home, working for a little while, playing ball, trying to figure things out, bouncing around, taking a few classes at ACCC, come back home, still trying to figure like, hey, should I try to go to Stockton? Should I do this? And I remember within that process, my mom coming to me like, hey, look, I need to tell you something. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And she's like, we're getting evicted. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Wait a minute. Like, what's going on? Like, why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have helped out. I could have worked a little bit more. And when she told me, it was literally in a week's difference we had to get out. So say it's Monday, right? She tells me we need to be out by Monday of next week. So it's like that. And at this time, you got to figure it's me, my 2 younger brothers, 3 of my cousins who are living with us because their mother passed away to a heart attack. We also have my mom's mom, who was my nanny, and then we have my mom's dad, all living under one roof, trying to figure out like, okay, where's everybody going in 7 days? So there's all of this just anxiety, all of this worry. And I remember prior to us leaving, we were packing up the U-Haul, trying to figure things out. And my mom came in the room. It was me and my brother, we arguing, me and my younger brother. He's 4 years younger than me. So we got that little brother, big brother kind of thing going on where he wants to do what I do. And it's annoying. We've grown past that now. But me and him are going back and forth, literally. And I remember us arguing and her kind of like yelling like, hey, shut up, blah, 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 blah. And I remember me just blacking out in that moment, just saying some of the most, horrific things I could have ever said. And along that was, I don't care about this family. I don't want to be here no more anyway. And my mom like stopped in that moment. She ran out the room, closed her door, just bawling, crying, feeling like she let all of us down. And I remember me just feeling terrible and low in that moment. And then I went into my room and I didn't come out my room for probably almost like 2 days, literally just sitting in the room. And that was the first time ever. And I don't say this lightly. That was the first time ever I was having like actual suicidal thoughts and like ideations of like, okay, I don't need to be here. I'm not wanted. I keep messing up. None of this is making sense, God. Like, I just need to go. And that was the first time, and I realized, like, man, I really, I need some help. I don't even know what this is. I feel like it just crept up on me, right? It's like having a Sprite bottle. You have a Sprite bottle, you shake that thing up, and then you crack the top a little bit. It's like, what's going to happen, right? It explode everywhere. And that was me. I had been shaking my entire life. And instead of easing it, it was just like crack open everywhere. And during that time as well, I lost a very close friend to me who also had mental health issues that ended up killing himself. And then another friend that went to prison. So I'm in like the deepest, darkest hole that I can be in. And the thoughts are just really tearing me apart. Like the things we say to ourselves sometimes is insane. Like, I don't know if any of you have ever just sat and just, okay, what am I saying to myself right now? Because it's you. It's you up there that's talking to you. But it's like, how many times have you said some horrific things to yourself that you wouldn't say to anybody else? Right. And I remember sitting and thinking that. And I was blessed to have a close friend of mine. He's in the Air Force, my guy. He's at my wedding this year. He started taking me to the gym. He started taking me to the gym and he started getting me kind of like out the house. Now, this was after I transitioned to us like losing that home and everybody trying to find somewhere to live. I was blessed to have my girlfriend, who's now my fiance. She actually called her mom and was like, "Hey, can he stay like at the house?" And she was actually at school, so she's like, "This is why she's gonna be my wife, right?" She's actually at school at the time in Bloomfield University, and she calls home like, "Hey, mom, this is the situation. Can Nate stay here?" And I literally stayed in her room, and her mom, provided for me, which was huge. Because this was my transition into, I would say, a better way of thinking. This was my transition into understanding, okay, this is what resilience looks like. And she really blessed me in that way, to have someone come in and just save me in that moment. Like, look, you're not going to be homeless. I'm going to take care of you. I'm not asking for rent money, nothing like that. I'm going to feed you. Everything's going to be cool. And during that time, I was working at the vitamin shop and also working at Tilton Fitness. And during that time, I remember working out a lot. And my fiance, she was like, "Look, you need to go get certified as a trainer. Like, you need to go do this. You're always in the gym." Because this was like my new method of like, okay, this is my new release, right? And I remember during that time getting certified to be a trainer and doing my first ever like men's physique, like fitness competition, just to see where I would be at mentally. So I ended up doing that. It was a 10-week prep. It was a great time. And things were looking like they were on the up and up. I had got back in school. I ended up leaving another school because I had left New Mexico, started taking classes at Caldwell, which is now a university. Same situation happened, left that school, ended up home taking classes at ACCC. But this time, y'all, I'll graduate. This time I would graduate. Ended up graduating, but also at this time, you got to think, I've been out of high school for quite some time now. So the people who graduated with me, they already, got their bachelor's degree. They're about to start their careers. And I'm like way behind in my mind. I'm way behind. I'm realizing today that none of it mattered, but I'm way behind in my mind. I'm like, oh man. And my insecurities are rising again. So I was like, look, I can't play basketball for free anymore. I can't do it for free anymore. So I ended up forfeiting my eligibility to play basketball because I was being recruited by schools because I was playing at ACCC. But by this time, I got a car note, I got a cell phone bill, all these things that I've accumulated now as liabilities that I just need to pay for. So I forfeit all of my eligibility, end up going to Las Vegas for an overseas tryout for a week. Fly out there, play for a week, play incredible. And I'm like, this is my shot. This is what all of it was for. Nothing was wasted. This is it. I'm going to play overseas. I'm going to get this money, be able to take care of my mom. I'm going to be able to drown these issues and whatever it is. Again, remember, I didn't address any of the mental health issues that I was telling you all about at all. I just kept moving. Get home, a few days passed by, no phone call. About a week passed by. I'm like, okay, coaches are going to reach out, no phone call. A few weeks passed by. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then a month passed by and I'm back in that dark place that I was once in again. Feeling insecure, feeling lonely, feeling left out, feeling like no one wants me, feeling like I don't need to be here. Got back in that deep, dark hole again. And my boy that I was telling you all about in the Air Force, he ended up taking me, we got into the gym deeper during this time. But during this time, I actually ended up hurting myself playing basketball. And I say that because I had to sit once again with my thoughts. I had to wear a boot. I had tore a bunch of ligaments in my ankle, and the doctor said I was making it worse when I was walking on it without the boot. And I didn't even know I had torn it. I was playing basketball, twisted my ankle. You can't see it in this Zoom setting, but if I was to stand up and walk around, you would see that I'm bow-legged and pigeon-toed. So I used to twist my ankle a lot. But this time it was pretty severe, and I had to wear this boot for a number of weeks. And I'm like, man, like, I don't even know what is going on. Like every time I go up, I'm getting knocked back down. Every time I go up, I'm getting knocked back down. Like what is going on with my life? And I remember during that time, we're in the gym and I don't really want to be there, but he introduces me to two other men that look like me. Now, this is super important what I'm going to say. He introduces me to two other men that look like me, that look like the people I grew up with. And before we would work out, we would sit in the locker room and have conversations. It was like community. We would have conversations for like 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes even an hour. But we weren't talking about sports. We weren't talking about women. We were literally talking about life, talking about the things we were going through and how we were overcoming them. And I remember sitting in the locker room like, what is going on in here? Like, I've never been exposed to this level of transparency, this level of vulnerability, especially from other Black men that look like me. And these weren't no small guys. These were, swole guys with tattoos and everything. I'm like, what is going on? But it allowed me to release. It allowed me to feel comfortable. And that was the first time I started to share, my story and share some of the things I had been challenged with and some of the things I was going through. And I felt like this burden just released off of me. And what I realized was that during that time of, us going to the gym, getting stronger physically, I was getting very strong mentally. And my life started to get better outside of the gym. And people were able to notice that, right? They started to notice like, okay, he's not holding on to whatever he was holding on to before. He's definitely, growing, right? And from there, I started to share my story as much as I could, right? I started to talk more about it. And even during that time, I started to write more. So I was always very gifted as a writer. That was one of my gifts as a kid. I was actually asked to be an author in a children's book as a child, but my parents never saw through the process. So I actually started to get back into writing, which was gratitude journals, just writing other things down. And that was when I started to document and write out the journey of me graduating high school and going through college and everything I learned at every single stop. That's why I say nothing was wasted. Like when I look at the things that I showed you guys, I literally have every ID from every school that I went to. I have the badges from the military school, and all of these things are just reminders of the journey that I had to go through to get to where I'm at so I can serve the way that I'm serving. So from there, I ended up writing and publishing my first book, which was Building Muscle, Life as Your Trainer. And building muscle isn't about physical muscle, but it's about resilience. That was the entire premise of the book, to talk about resilience, right? Because I realized how important resilience was to make it through those issues, but also how important resilience was to get the help that I needed, because I didn't see it around me. I could have easily conformed to the environment around me and we can still be in the same situation. But because I was resilient enough to go seek the help, to go see the therapist, to go get in communities, to get around groups, to share my story. Now you got, my dad's going to therapy, my mom, my brother, my uncles. Like, they're calling me now. We're having conversations about things we never talked about. Like, look, and I could just see how it's freeing everybody up. And it's a beautiful thing, right? It's a beautiful thing. And I want to say this: you can't skip adversity, but you can learn from it, right? You can't skip adversity, but you can learn from it. I thought my path would be graduate high school, go to college, play basketball for X amount of years, go play pro. That's the story right there. But I don't know if I would have been able to have the same impact if I would have just made it professionally playing ball. Not saying that that's not a good thing for somebody that's doing it, but my journey is my journey and my story is my story for a reason. And each of you have a story to share. Each of you have something that you overcame that somebody else needs, right? And I truly believe this before we move on. What was once a burden for me, it has now become the very thing that I lift off of other people. And I believe that's true for all of us. Think about the things that are a burden to you. Think about the things that are challenging to you, the things that you have struggled through. I truly believe that your mission in life, it comes full circle around that. And that becomes the very mission that you end up helping somebody else with. So before we move on to the presentation part, I know that was a little long-winded, but I felt like it was important for me to share that. So you can know my heart, understand who Nate is before we get into this information. That way I'm not just talking at you and spinning facts and all this different things that you can just look up yourself. But I want you to know who the person is behind all of this and really understand my heart and my passion for this, because I know the power in, being intentional about your mental healing and your mental health journey. I've seen what it's done for my family and others that I've been able to impact. And I have a bunch of different stories on that. So I want to ask, if it's okay, Christina, if I can, I want to ask this one question, and I'll keep it to this one question. That's cool?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So I'll premise the question with this. I believe that your stand is your brand, right? So for me, I stand for resilience, I stand for mental wellness, and I stand for optimism, right? Because I believe life is going to test you and you only pass that if you never quit on yourself, right? And I also believe this too, that positive thinking might work. Positive thinking might work, but we know negative thinking works 100% of the time. We know that. Negative thinking always works. Positive thinking might work. Now, because I know that negative thinking always works, I want to try something different, which is positive. It may or may not work, but I want to try it anyway because I want to be optimistic in every situation. So my stand, again, is resilience, mental wellness, and optimism. So I want to ask you all, and anybody can answer this. You can come off mute or you can just type it in the chat. What is your stand? Feel free, let's see. I stand for equality and equity. I like that. I stand for empathy, resilience, and hard work. I love that. I love that. I stand for youth education. Oh, that's powerful, Toby. That's powerful. That's good. That's good. All right, so I'm going to let them keep coming in, and you can just drop them in there if you want to, because again, I believe that your stand, again, is your brand, but it's also the thing that will keep you motivated to continue, whatever you're doing when challenges come. It's what will allow you to be more resilient, because the reality is, you never know how resilient you have to be, until it's time to be resilient. So a few takeaways before we jump into the presentation. I want you to forget all the reasons that it won't work and believe the one reason that it will, which is you won't quit on yourself. And I actually stole that quote from my fiance. One day I was having a really, really rough day, and she can tell, like, she's been around me. We've been together for 11 years, right? I know, long time, right? And we just get married, 11 years. And one day I was having a really rough day and I come into the office and she literally writes on my whiteboard, forget all the reasons it won't work and believe the one reason it will. And I haven't even erased that. Like, that's the whiteboard. I'm not touching it. It's been that way for a while now. But it was powerful because she said that and it allowed me to continue to persevere. It was the motivation that I needed within that moment. But a few things I want you to, how many of you have seen Finding Nemo? I would assume everybody, because this is a great movie. Even for adults, even for adults. All right, I want you to be like Dory. And when I say that, I mean this. I want you to be like Dory when it comes to your negative limiting beliefs. Forget all of them. Dory was forgetting stuff so fast. As soon as it happened, it was gone. It's the same thing with your limiting beliefs. When they come in, when they're trying to infiltrate your mind, turn in the Dory real quick. Huh? What? I don't know what that was. It's gone now, and just keep moving, right? And use this time that we're in, this time in history, to become more resilient. Whatever that looks like for you in your specific situation, utilize that. Get in community with people who can hold you accountable. Whether that's your physical health, your mental health, whatever it is, be in a community with people that hold you accountable. I have very close friends who hold me accountable to me taking care of my mental wellness. And that's super, super important. Those are the people you want around you. And the last thing is to practice gratitude. And this is going to lead us into the presentation because this was huge for me, practicing gratitude. I have a daily gratitude practice. I have journals upon journals all over this office where I will write different things in regards to gratitude. And it will help me get in a state of optimism. It would help me to shift my mood almost instantly. And it will help me to remember all of the things that I've been blessed with, the people that I've been blessed with. And I would usually do one like professional, one family, one personal. You can do however you want. I usually do 3, you can do 5, 10, it doesn't matter, but it's a great practice to have. to write that out and really start that gratitude practice. So practice gratitude. I can't drive that point enough. It's super, super important. And it's very powerful, and it's a game changer. As simple as it is, it's the simple things that are game changers. Simple things. All right, so I want to jump into the presentation. I'm going to assume that I have screen capabilities.
Yes, you should.
All right, let's make it happen. Let's see. See what's going on here. All right, boom. Share. Can you see my screen, everyone?
We're good. Yep.
Oh, this is great. Okay, this is great. Good old times. I can't wait till we can all meet in person and do this. I'm gonna come with a lot more energy, but I'm doing my best from this position. All right. So let's get started. Slowly uploading here. Oh, and I'm quite the graphic designer too. I'm joking. I'm not that great. This is this is as good as it got. All right. So welcome. After that long story, welcome to the Mind Your Mind workshop. We're just going to dive into a few things in regards to facts around mental illness, a little bit about resilience. For those of you who aren't familiar with ACEs, we're going to touch a little bit on that. I have a very short video also that I would like to share. And then I'm going to just share some tips that have worked for me and I noticed have worked for others that I've had my clients and different people I consult apply. So yeah, let's dive right into it. So most of you know the notorious B.I.G. Some of you may not. But in 1994, he prophesied and he named his album Ready to Die. I don't know how many of you knew that, but he named his album Ready to Die. I want to propose to you today that we should be ready to live. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Notorious B.I.G. But when I was at a mental health conference 2 years ago and they brought that point up and how it transpired into different communities, especially for like the Black and Brown community, I was like, man, he really, spoke that thing into existence. It really manifested itself. And I truly believe in the power of words, that life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I want us to speak life. And I want us to be ready to live. I was actually thinking about getting a shirt like that, but that's a whole nother topic, right? So let's jump right into the facts. And Christina shared some of them earlier. 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 20 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness each year. 1 in 6 youth aged 16 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by age 24. These numbers are super important because it shows how challenging and how just tremendous this issue is, right? And suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 14. And I'll have some stories to share about that as well. And last thing in regards to the facts, and I'll just read this briefly because I don't want to like read this at you if you guys can read yourself, but we're here now. Many students have experienced, and this is specifically for my college students. If you're on the line, my college students. Many students have experienced trauma during college or before coming to a college in some way, shape, or form. Studies show that suicide has become the second leading cause of death among college students following accidents, which include alcohol and drug abuse. That issue has become extremely severe with more than 1,100 college students committing suicide every year, and that number has been rising. This has created a negative impact among many students and has prohibited them from thriving and graduating. And I know just from personal experience, and I won't go into detail about it, but I was at school finishing up my bachelor's degree, and it was insane. You're not even going to believe this. During one semester, 8 students committed suicide. One semester is what, 4 months long or something like that? 8 students. And most of it happened closer to the end of the semester, which we know is finals and all of these different things. You got to get your projects in and grades. And it's like, man, when did it become that deep? But we know that it didn't start there, right? It was lingering issues. Again, it's the soda analogy. Shaking, shaking, shaking. I'm super stressed now. And that's that. People make a permanent decision, based off of temporary emotions. And I just want to break down real quick, because we won't go into deep in regards to mental health disorders and things like that. We'll be here all night. And I don't want to bore you with all of that. But we'll just go into the two most common, especially for the age range of teens, young adults, people over 40 or older. Anxiety and depression is the main one we usually hear about often, right? I know for me, I was suffering from severe anxiety, right? Severe anxiety. It was something with my mind where things kept racing, and I was really challenged with always thinking about what's next, always thinking about, oh, this is going to happen again, right? I was predicting what would happen, even though it didn't. And then when I lost my grandfather, I was depressed, extremely depressed, right? And I'll just read them off again really quickly. Anxiety, a mental health disorder characterized by a persistent decrease or loss of interest in certain activities, usually causing severe symptoms that affect how you feel, think, and handle daily activities such as sleeping, eating, or working. And that is the truth, because I was not sleeping whatsoever because I was so anxious, so anxious. And it also affected how I would show up to work, wherever that was. It would show up in my relationships. And it was extremely challenging during that time. Thank God I got through that. Depression, a mental health disorder characterized by a persistent decrease or loss of interest in certain activities, usually causing severe symptoms that affect how you feel, think, and handle daily activities such as eating, sleeping, and working. Very similar in that effect. And a practice that I learned, and I'll share this before we move forward, is to be present. When I got certified in Baptiste yoga, one of the quotes that really stuck with me, and a quote that I live by today, is be where your feet are. That was one thing I took from it that till this day I still practice, because what that does is it allows me to be in the present moment. I'm not focused on the past or what happened, so I'm not necessarily depressed. I'm not worrying about tomorrow or next week or the failure that might come, so I'm not anxious. I'm literally present within that moment. And that alone, that principle alone, helped me a lot to really be present. Even to this day, when I feel myself getting in a rush, it's like, hold on. 7 breaths, let's focus, look down, be where your feet are, focus in on this moment. And almost instantaneously now, I'm able to catch myself and release that anxiety. Now, I wanted to share this because within the African-American community and other underserved communities, the stigma of mental health is huge, right? I talked about it earlier, where me and my family didn't necessarily have conversations around mental health. It wasn't a word that anybody was using. It was actually frowned upon, right? If you had to say anything about your feelings, for me, it was instantly like, oh, it's the devil. We literally gave the devil he didn't even deserve to be taking all that. And we was giving him everything. Every problem was like, oh, it's the devil. I was like, man, you sure he did that? I don't think that's the devil, but literally everything, because we didn't want to address it and have the hard conversations that we needed to have. And these three things right here are huge, because what I realized is that the stigma continues on because there's an inability to cope properly because of the lack of training. For me, I experienced that throughout my college journey, my college experience. I didn't have the proper training, the proper language. I had an inability to cope properly. So all of my coping methods were destructive. They were all tearing me down and tearing me apart physically and mentally, right? We also fear what we don't understand, because we don't understand mental health. We don't understand mental wellness. We don't understand necessarily resilience. We don't understand adverse childhood experiences. We don't understand these things. So it's scary. And that's with anything, right? We have to become informed. We have to do our due diligence. We have to ask questions. We have to seek the help in order to destigmatize mental health. And then also a huge one, and this was huge in my neighborhood, we fear looking weak and or crazy, right? Growing up, you can be called out of your name for expressing your emotions. You can be seen as weak, called a punk. You can even be beat up, to be completely honest. And then when I got to college, I realized that students that needed the help didn't want to seem crazy. They didn't want to be seen walking into like the mental wellness department. They didn't want to be seen, right? So there was this stigma that just kept the issues going on, and people weren't getting the treatment that they needed. So I want to share briefly about ACEs. And after this, I'm going to share a really, really short video, but I think it's important for those of you that have never maybe, heard about adverse childhood experiences or don't understand it, but would like to learn more. I think it's extremely important that we address this, because this is how we are going to be in prevention mode instead of reaction, right? Especially for the next generation. ACEs is what they call it. Adverse childhood experiences are potentially traumatic experiences that occur during one's childhood. These traumatic experiences in childhood and teenage years may put children at risk for violence, chronic health problems, mental illness, and substance abuse in adulthood. So like the different things, let's say, me going through, being touched and molested as a kid, traumatic. Me being around violence on the regular. Me being around people who were shot and seeing that. Me being around drugs. Me seeing, maybe an uncle hit his girlfriend right in front of me. All of these things, while I may not have reacted in that moment, it was still traumatic. And then that weighed into me as an adult, and I didn't even realize I had that baggage. So really briefly, I'm gonna click this. We're gonna watch a quick video. I guess give me a thumbs up if the audio is good. Can you all hear that?
We can't hear that.
You can't hear it?
No. So what you're probably going to have to do is stop sharing, and then
Okay.
bring it back up. There's going to be a little box in the bottom left-hand corner that says share audio. Click that and then share your screen.
Share sound. Okay. I'm learning something new every day, y'all. This is incredible.
I'm teaching because I've had the experience. So
okay.
There you go.
All right. Let me know if you can hear this first few seconds.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Perfect. So this is a really quick video. It was introduced to me in regards to helping with people who went through those experiences. There were answers to questions, and then there was resources to make sure we put preventative things into place for future generations. So I'm going to play this, and let's keep it.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me. And sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems at school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I should. Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I am always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time. Now I'm just angry. The doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my aces. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hurt half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents. I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer's probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hate my kids. I hate their mum too, until she left, so my kids have grown up with aces. And now my daughter had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from Mum and Dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and Dad got help. The shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school, but the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children, and I've got a job. Most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ace-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ace-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced 1 ace as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more aces. If we stop aces, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half.
All right. So I wanted to share that really briefly. Give me 1 second. All right. Can you all still hear me? Good to go? Okay, perfect. So again, yeah, I thought that was super important to share because what it shows is a cycle, and what it shows at the end is him breaking that cycle. You know, him getting the help he needs, the accountability he needs, and ultimately that helps future generations moving forward. So when you think about your mental health and your mental wellness, I don't want you to think about just yourself. I want you to think about who's coming behind you and who can be blessed by you taking care of yourself. So for me, holding myself accountable to take care of myself, to go to therapy, to have counselors in my life, to have coaches, whatever it is, to put things into practice, I know that it's going to benefit my brothers, my niece, my nephew, and future kids that I may have, and then also others in my community. I know that's going to benefit them. All right, give me 1 second. Oh, hold on. Trying to get back to where we was. Oh, I got to log out and log back in. Christine, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second so I can log back in.
Sure, no problem. As he does that, if anyone has any questions or thoughts they'd like to drop in the chat, you can start doing so now. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So feel free to drop those as they come to mind, and I'll help to man the chat.
And we'll be wrapping up shortly too in regards to the presentation. I have a few more things that I really want to share with you all. And I just want to thank you for your patience and also just being a part of this. I think it's important that we have more gatherings like this, more conversations. And I definitely want to applaud Christina and Stories of Atlantic City for making this happen. So let's jump right into it.
It's great information offered here.
Thank you. I'm about to reshare my screen again, just waiting for the upload.
Okay, great.
All right.
I see Corinne has a hand raised. I'm not sure if that's for a question or if that was from earlier. But Corinne, feel free to drop it in the chat or just hold the question if you do have one for the end.
Sorry, I just don't know how to get rid of it.
Got it. Okay. No problem.
All right, can you all see my screen again? All right, perfect. We are back on track, and we're winding down a little bit. So this is just a chart that more so gives you more insight on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and how it influences your health and well-being throughout life. Starting at the foundation of historical trauma. This is going to be huge for African Americans in regard to historical trauma. Then you have your social conditions based on how you were raised. For me, I was raised in, super low income, poverty. We were limited in food options or food in general. So there was food insecurity on top of that, on top of the violence that you see and different things like that. Then you have the adverse childhood experiences that come in. Then it's a litany of other things. And I remember this was about 2 or 3 years ago, going to the doctors, and he's like, "Yeah, you got high blood pressure." I'm like, "Excuse me? I'm in shape." But at that same time, my stress levels were extremely high. And this was when I started to go to therapy again to get the help that I needed. Because I was like, you know what, I'm fine, I'm good, I can do this on my own. But I still had other things to unpack. And when my doctor said that, I caught it quickly. I was like, okay, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to go get the help that I need, right? I remember, when MLK was assassinated, when they did the autopsy, they said his heart was years beyond his actual age. Like it was so much further down the line, like 20, 30 years, because of the stress, because of the trauma. Like he had the heart of like a really old man at the age that he died at. So it does play a part in that, and it can be very severe and manifest into physical issues, right? Yes. I'm sorry, the screen sharing thing is weird. I'm trying to get it going. Whoops.
Good old technology, right?
Yeah, right. Thank you all for being patient.
You're fine. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Give me 1 second, everyone. This is what happens when you're trying to get fancy. All right, I think we are good to go. Just going to share my screen one last time with you all.
Right.
And let's hope that this time it works well.
Third time's a charm.
Yes, third time is the charm. Not sure why it wasn't working before. Oh, let's keep taking me out of the presentation slide. Can you see my screen, anyone?
No. We saw
You
for
cannot.
a moment. Yeah, saw for a moment, but then it went away.
Okay. I'm just trying to get it to where. Can you still see it now?
We can see your screen now, yes.
All right. I just want to let you all know that you are amazing for not bullying me right now and having having technology issues.
Listen, I'm sure we have all struggled with technology at some point in this pandemic. So no worries.
Yeah. Just want to let you know this is a solid group of people right here. My type of people who have grace.
We're being honest, technology has caused me a lot of anxiety over this pandemic.
Right. Okay, so before we have any other issues, I'm going to try to wrap this up. And really quickly, mental health versus mental strength. And I want to talk about why both are important to your well-being, because there is a misconception that they are one within the same, and they're not necessarily the same. It's like you can be physically strong and look physically, healthy, but on the inside be rotting. We've seen the guys who are bodybuilders, great physiques, but they have a heart attack because their cholesterol is terrible, or just different things like that. So it's the same with this, right? And the difference is mental health is the presence or absence of a mental illness, like anxiety or depression or other ones. It's also the state of mental well-being, right? And then mental strength, which is the other side, is the ability to cope with negative situations in a positive way. Acknowledging your emotions, taking productive action despite your circumstances. So throughout my journey, I was building mental strength, but I wasn't addressing my mental health. Now, when you're building mental strength, that actually can help you on the other side in regards to your mental health. But you also have to address the mental health aspect of it. It doesn't just happen by osmosis. You have to actually address it. So for me, I was heavy on the mental strength. Like, I'm resilient, I'm strong, but I still had these challenges with anxiety and depression. But now that I have that healthy balance of understanding, like, okay, this can't go addressed without this being addressed, I can now merge them together to where mentally I am now healthy. So I think that's huge to understand, especially as we talk about building resilience. Now, I want to change the convo one quick second before we close this thing out. And I want to ask a question because I believe social media is a huge contributing factor in regards to mental health issues and challenges. How has social media impacted your mental health? Now, you can write it in the chat. You don't have to say it out loud, but I want to give you a few seconds to really, really think about that, because I'm not sure if you have thought about it. A lot of us mindlessly scroll. We don't realize what we're taking in. A lot of the time, most of us wake up on our phone and go right to Instagram or right to Facebook. So I want you to take a few seconds to think like, hey, has this impacted me? And is it good or bad? Like, was it a good way, a bad way? How did I feel when I got off of here? Did I feel like, I could accomplish more? Did I feel more insecure about myself? Did this expose something in me? I want you to really ask yourself that question. And if you want to drop it in the chat, that's great too. And this was something that I came up with, the anti-social social. And I did this because I was coaching Pleasantville High School's basketball team a few years ago. And I remember being on the bus leaving a game. And all of the boys were on the bus, on the phone, talking to each other, but not actually verbally talking to each other. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm sitting there, I'm looking like, what is wrong with y'all? And everybody's literally sitting like this. They're Snapchatting, they're doing this, they're writing to each other, texting each other, but the bus is silent. And I'm like, this is strange. I remember going to games and like having all kinds of conversations and having a ball, and they weren't even saying two words to each other. So that's where the concept of the anti-social came up. And just some quick facts about social media and just overusing it in regards to your mental health. Excessive use of social media tends to engender impaired social interactions and shows an increased sense of isolation, right? Because we're in this other reality that we try to live in and create this persona in, but we aren't actually participating in the reality, right? Several other studies have found that mobile phone addiction, as well as excess smartphone use, is also associated with increased sleep disturbance, depression, anxiety, and overall stress. A lot of time when people are stressing, when they're worrying, they're sitting in bed, laying in bed, but they're just constantly scrolling through their phone. And it's just making it worse and worse. So again, these are just things to think about. I don't want to harp on it too long, but just think about it, right? I remember, and I'll share this story really quickly. I was finishing up my last semester at Rowan University, and I decided to go on a social media fast, right? I was like, for this next 3 months, we got finals, I'm trying to graduate. I'm not getting on social media. I took it off my phone, and I was sitting on the deck at Rowan at the cafeteria, and I'm looking down, literally looking down at people walking around campus in between class, and this was what it looked like. This was what it looked like. And I've been to Stockton a few times too, and I'll be honest, they're kind of like this too sometimes. People be walking through, they be in Big Blue, they be at this other building, in wing, and just like this, on the phone, trying to get to their next spot. And what I realized was that it's the fear of missing out. People don't want to miss out on anything, especially when it's on social media. I don't want to be the one late to the meme. I don't want to be the one late to the tragic video. I don't want to be the one late to whatever it is. I need to be there when it's happening. So there is a fear of missing out, which causes a certain level of anxiety within you, right? And I want to share this. Kill the notification, right? I'm going to share some other tips, but this one had to be first. Because often, and I noticed this for myself and others that I had told them to do this, like, look, put your phone on do not disturb during certain hours. Turn off your notifications for certain things, especially your social media apps. When I first did this, I remember literally patting my pocket every few seconds, like, hey, let me check my phone. Let me check my phone. Let me check. Just really anxious. Let me check. And I'm like, oh, snap, I have a problem. I have a problem. I'm seeking something from this app, some form of validation, something that I need is causing me to feel addicted to this. And it wasn't until I killed the notifications and I stayed disciplined with that to where I'm not worried about it anymore. You know, if you want to get to me, you can. You can call me twice. It goes through an emergency call. If I don't get to you now, I'll get to you later. If I don't see the memes now or the videos now, that's fine. I'll get to it at some point, but it's not going to control my life, right? And this one, a little graphic, but be careful you don't overdose on your need for validation. And as you can see, it has the little emojis and things down there, because a lot of people, we're on these applications. And I have a friend that works in Silicon Valley, and she tells me about all the different tech things and how far ahead they are with technology. And their purpose behind a lot of this is to keep you on the app, to keep you seeking a sense of validation. That's why the heart's there. It makes you feel good when you see likes. It makes you feel good when somebody double taps on your post. It makes you feel good on the inside. It rises something in you. There's a dopamine hit. But a lot of times we may overdose on that validation, right? How many of you, and I haven't done this, but personally I know people, how many of you have taken down a post because it didn't have enough likes? That's an issue. That's a real issue. And I know a lot of people that have done that, right? Seeking validation. All right. So the light and the dark side of social media, and this is just in regards to mental health. The pros are networking, connections, marketing, inspiration and motivation, and you can use it as a learning tool. So these are the pros, and there are a few others as well, but these were the main ones that I know of, right? But the cons are time consuming. How many times have you been somewhere and you just on the phone, you check and scroll a few times and you look up and 30 minutes went by and you didn't even realize it? It's just chewing up your time. It can become addictive. It can also hinder your social skills. You just heard the story about, my basketball team. Social skills were horrible, right? Also comparison, which is a huge one in today's age. Comparing yourself to an anomaly, right? Comparing yourself to someone else that you don't know, that doesn't necessarily care about you or your mental wellness. But you compare your life to theirs, not realizing that it is the highlight reel of what they are posting. They're posting what they want you to see. It's a bad measure to compare to. And then you also have cyberbullying, which is really huge for the younger age group, the teenagers and younger. All right, methods to increase discipline. So these are the tips, you guys, and decrease stress. So this is going to be for your phone, for social media, for anything that is consuming you and making you anxious, depressed, worried, contributing to your mental health challenges, whatever that is, right? I want you to minimize screen time, huge one. Use an actual alarm clock. Like they still sell alarm clocks, everybody. You don't need to use your phone. I know you're probably using it and that's cool, but they sell alarm clocks still and they're really cheap, probably like $5 to $10, right? Meditate and exercise. Those are huge for me. I love those. Delete, offload some apps. If you have an iPhone, you can offload apps. If not, just delete them. You can always go back to it. Move your social media apps to a different page. For me, on my iPhone, when I open it up, none of my social media stuff is on that first page because I know I had a habit to click on it immediately, right? I know I had a habit to click on it immediately and start looking, and then my mind starts racing. So I moved it to like 3 pages down. Now I can still get to it pretty easily, but it slows me down, right? Time management, plan your day out. Don't just wake up like an accident. Plan out what you want to do through the day. Plan out time to, call a friend. Plan out time to write out your gratitude. Plan out time to do something fun. Plan out time to meditate. Plan out time to exercise. Plan out time to prepare some food for yourself. Seek professional help if it's getting to that level. Join support groups. Seek out mentors as well. They're all around you. And then there are confidential personal counselors offered at the Wellness Center. Now, this is for our college students here. I went on the Stockton site and I've seen that they are offering these services. They are available to you. Even during the pandemic, you can get these services, right? They're right here. If you want to screenshot this, you can just go to the website, but if it's easier to just screenshot this, the services are available, right? And I'll go on to the next slide. And this is for those of you, obviously, that aren't students. Here are additional resources that you can utilize. There's a few different ones that I love to use, different foundations, Psychology Today. This is actually how I found my therapist. And if you are experiencing any real issues, anything that I said tonight may have been triggering to you or anything like that, you know, there is, 911. There's also the suicide prevention hotline. Get the help you need. You are not alone, and it's okay to want to get the help. And last but not least, check on your strong friends. And I kind of went back and forth if I wanted to share this, but I was like, this is really important and I need to share this because I've had a lot of people reach out to me since sharing this on social media that were going through some different challenges, but now they're seeking the help they need. And I had a friend recently, couple of weeks ago, not even a couple of weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, passed away. He was battling with mental health issues and he passed away, took his own life and things like that. And it just made me very aware of like, we need to be more engaged, to check on our strong friends, to check on the people that, if somebody pops in your mind, I haven't talked to them in a while, let me check on them. Just send them a text message, shoot them a phone call, whatever it is. Reach out to them because you never know, right? You look at this expression of myself on this side, you see the same exact face, but you don't know if I'm excited, happy, anxious, suicidal, depressed, or struggling. You have no idea what's going on the inside. You can only see the outside. Again, it's the car analogy. You can only see the outside, but you get in, it's a mess on the inside. So check on your strong friends. If people are popping in your mind, if you got like a little nudge, intuition, reach out. It doesn't hurt to say, hey, man, what's going on? I just wanted to check on you, see how you were doing. I hope everything's okay. That right there can be the push to help that somebody needed, to know that someone's there for them, that someone cares. And I want to finish off with this. I love to do this. It would be great for you in person because I love the energy, but we're going to do it on Zoom. So I need some participation. I know I'm asking for a lot, but I need some participation right here because I need this energy. It makes me feel great. So these are my mental strength affirmations. I came up with these a few years ago. And these are just affirmations that I say to myself daily. Literally, as soon as I wake up, my feet hit the ground, I say, thank you, God. And then I'm in the mirror, brushing my teeth, repeating the affirmations in my head. When I'm done that, I'm walking my dogs and saying the affirmations out loud. And it gets me in the mood and it gets me in a certain space where whatever life tries to throw at me for that day, I've already built the resilience in me to just, it's nothing. I'll handle it when it comes. It's not going to tear me down. I've already been broken down. It's not going to break me down because I know how to be resilient. So these things are extremely powerful. And again, you can screenshot this, say it over and over and over again, put it on your wall, put it on your phone screen, whatever works for you. I want to do this, but I'm going to say this out loud. And if you're available, I want you to repeat after me, right? Again, I know I'm asking for a lot, but I need some participation. I can't see your beautiful faces, so I at least want to hear your beautiful voices. All right. So we're going to go into it. I'm going to say it, and then you say it right after me. All right. Woo, I love this part. All right. First one. You're probably in a rough spot.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, that was okay. All right. So here, sorry, going back. All right, and I have a gift for you too that you kind of just saw, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway. No, all right, first one. I am grateful.
I am grateful.
I am grateful.
Say it like you're grateful. Hold on. I am grateful.
I am grateful.
There we go. All right. I am controlling what I can control.
They muted me.
I am controlling what I can control.
Okay, we're working on our unison. Okay. I am protecting my mental health.
I am protecting my mental health.
I am healing.
I am healing.
I am whole.
I am whole.
I am loved.
I am loved.
I am loved.
I am loved.
My life matters.
My life matters.
My mental wellness is an investment.
My mental wellness is an investment.
All right, 10 more times. No, I'm joking. We're not gonna do it 10 more times. Not today. Not today. But I do want to impart you all with a gift. And again, just thank you for this evening. I do want to give this to you. Now, I made this specifically for students, but it actually speaks to everyone. So you can actually get this for free and download it. It'll go directly to you. And what it is just a guide to mental strength, 7 steps to build resilience and self-efficacy. You can go to my website, download it, and utilize it. It's a tool, it's a resource. And like I said, it's free. So I want you to go ahead and have that. And if you have any questions about that, I can definitely, provide you with more insight and things like that. If you're having trouble getting it, I can also help you navigate that throughout the website. But I wanted to give you this as a gift and as a thank you for Christina just bringing me on to, share my journey, share my story, and continue to push forward my mission to really help people understand, mental health, resilience, adverse childhood experiences, and really build self-worth and self-efficacy. I believe that when we are mentally strong, when we are mentally healed, when we are in a place where we are mentally healthy, we thrive in all other areas, and then our community thrives when we have healthy people. So that's super important to me. And you can also connect with me everywhere, Nate Evans Jr. I don't know how I was able to get that, but I guess there's only me out there in the world. So everywhere that you can think of is Nate Evans Jr. And I would love to connect with you, chat with you. You can follow up with me and see other things that I'm doing. But that is me. And thank you for this time. And I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nate. That was amazing. I learned so much. And I'm sure everyone in the crowd did too. I did want to go back up in the chat. You asked a question earlier about social media and people were dropping some answers in the chat. So I just wanted to acknowledge those. We had Corinne say that social media has definitely impacted her negatively. It increased some of her insecurities that she's already had. And it has made her feel very distracted when trying to do schoolwork. We feel you, Corinne.
Right.
Distraction is real. I myself put, it affects me both negatively and positively. I enjoy seeing my friends doing well and prospering. However, sometimes the comparison game rears its ugly head. Sabrina put, it made her more self-conscious about herself from what she posts and what she needs to needing validation from the amount of likes. Let's see, I think we had one more. No, I think that was it. Now we have people just thanking you, telling you how much they enjoyed it. Corinne said, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. You were very inspiring. Donna says, thank you so much. CHAC enjoyed this. I'm not sure what that's an acronym for, but whoever you are, thank you for sharing your thoughts. This has been, like I said, once again, really amazing. Such valuable information was shared. I know we're at our time, but I did want to offer the Covenant House of Atlantic City. Gotcha. Thank you.
They did tell me they would be on.
Thank you. Yes. So I did want to leave a few moments for any participants for questions that you may have, comments you may want to share. You have Nate, the expert, on the call right now. Go ahead, feel free to share, even if it is a comment and not a question. I'll give you a moment. Tafaya, my sister, who's also in the field of social health, mental health. She is a mental health social worker at a school. Awesome. But she said, good job from a mental health social worker. Ariana said, I really enjoyed taking the time to have this conversation. Thank you for sharing your story and your inspiration.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. If anyone else has anything to share or to ask, feel free to unmute. I love to hear lovely voices as well. And if not, that is absolutely okay.
I will say something, Miss Noble.
Sure, go right ahead, Miss Noble.
Mr. Nate, I said, young sir, first of all, I'm very proud of you being, sharing your story. We're still taking the stigma away from mental health. And we already know how you express in our minority communities, especially us that are, go to church and different things. We're still working hard that you not only need the spirituality part, but, therapy too. you need both of them.
Yeah.
So, I'm commending you. I'm glad that you're coming out to your story, telling your story. Not being afraid to share things that have happened to you, because as you know, that's how people are going to connect to you and feel comfortable with taking away that stigma of mental health. So continue doing what you're doing. Great job.
Thank you. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Noble. So I absolutely agree. And I love that she brought up storytelling. This is just another testament as to why storytelling and story sharing is so powerful. When people share their stories, we can find our similarities and our differences, and we can celebrate those things. And it just may be the one thing that somebody needs to come out and share their story, or to get the help they need in regards to mental health. So thank you once again for that. I'm going to share my screen briefly. And if you still have a question, feel free to hop on as I'm pulling up my screen. But I did just want to share some things coming up on Stories of AC ends. I know Nate talked about some coping mechanisms, so perfect time to put in my plug for our event next week we have with Christian Correa and Elisa Pratt. They're going to be leading us in a lunch hour yoga flow and educating us on the basics of yoga. So that is going to be Tuesday, April 13th at 12:30 p.m. via Zoom. So if you are connected to Stories of AC on our social medias or in our email list, you should have that, the link for the event. And if you do not, here's our information for our website is storiesofatlanticcity.com, Instagram, Stories of AC, Facebook, Stories of Atlantic City, and Twitter, of course, Stories of AC. So if you are not connected with us, please do. We have so many wonderful events going on and coming up. Everything is free. And we want to hear your story. We have a lot of great ways that you can get involved on our website where you can share your story with us and have the opportunity to be featured on our AC cameos. So really tune in, get involved. We'd love to have you stick around. And then also, if you'd like to be included on our email list, feel free to drop your email address in the chat and I'll be sure to add you on. Is there anything else from anybody? I want to make sure we've heard everyone's voice that wanted to be heard. All right, I don't see anything else in the chat. Nate, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, first and foremost, just want to say thank you for holding space for me this evening to share my testimony, share my journey. It's always a pleasure. I always get excited about it because I know that, my story has purpose, just like each and every one of you. And I hope that I inspire someone else to, receive the healing that they need to go ahead and share their story. I believe that's just how we advance throughout the world. And I always believe that someone's waiting on what you're building. And I also believe that your story and who you are is an answer to someone else's prayer. So that's just a little bit of motivation for all of you to keep going. Don't quit on yourself. Get what you need. Get the help if you need the help. Whatever that looks like for you, get it, do it, and realize that someone's depending on you that you may never even meet. And I know that can be a little bit heavy, but for me, it's encouraging and inspiring because there's people out there that I may never cross paths with, that may come across my book, may come across a video or something, and it could potentially save their life and inspire them. And I know that that's true because that happened to me with people I call long distance mentors that I've never met in person. But because they, stuck with their journey, because they were resilient, because they decided to share their story, they freed me and allowed me to feel inspired to get the help that I need to share my story. So realize that there's value in your story. Don't worry about trying to compare traumas or anything like that. Look, your story is just as valuable as mine and somebody needs it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So I don't see any more questions or comments. So thank you once again to all our participants who joined us tonight on this Wednesday evening on this hump day when you could have been anywhere else, but you decided to join us. So thank you. And also we at Stories of AC love you and we value you and your stories as well. You own your narrative, so make it great. And hopefully we'll see you at our next event. Enjoy your evening.
Have a good night, everybody.